This is Asteria, and I'm being assisted by Mr. Wiggles today. We're going to be discussing Chapter 8.6 of The Wandering Inn. Quick chapter summary. It's the anniversary of Aaron arriving to Inworld. Don't have an official name for, but maybe someday. We start out with just characters that have met her, remembering her. They're sort of hit by a wave of sadness since they're missing her. Then we switch gears to the characters that are working on a cure for her and discussing how that cure is going to take place. That was a hell of a chapter. So we're going to go ahead and start off with general impressions. What was really working for you in this chapter? What did you just absolutely adore, love about it? For me, what I absolutely adored was getting to see a little bit more of a memory walk down memory lane with Relk and his guard buddy. It was great to see that duo back together, and it really kind of tied in nicely to other people's thoughts and reactions about Aaron. And for me, it just really cemented, it's like, why are people doing all this stuff for Aaron? I never really got that. Like, she's a friend, but, you know, friends die, people move on. But for this, it really cemented why they're going the distance for her, you know, why they're risking life and limb. And that's what I really loved about this chapter.
What I loved the most, I have been imagining for years of my life about how different characters would react when they got to know and speak to other characters. And this gave me a taste of it. This gave me just a hint of everything that I've been imagining for a long time. So having Marcia, dunk on frickin' everybody almost, and Joseph making Lord of the Rings comments and Ryoka wanting to reach over and slap him, and all of that made me insanely happy. Second favorite part was probably Relk and Kilb sitting at the inn and ordering pasta and blue fruit juice. That I was sobbing. That was amazing. I loved it.
Hey.
Yes, I liked Nears, but I'm not going to go into that because we don't have enough time. So,
Okay, so Known Paradox saying that seeing Relk and Kill reminiscing over the inn and then hoping for Aaron to just open the door to that inn even for a moment and waiting to see Aaron, hoping she comes around the corner and just knowing it wasn't going to happen. Oh, I totally agree. That was definitely tugging at the heartstrings. I almost kind of was waiting for Aaron to actually just like literally pop out. That would have been, I think I would have lost it.
Yeah, I cried.
All right, Wiggles, you're up.
My favorite part of the chapter was definitely the chat room. It was just like so chaotic and messy, and it just like it really perfectly encapsulated, a bunch of different people coming together and talking in a chat room for the first time, and just not knowing what's happening, not knowing how to moderate themselves, and like Salas just being the ass he is and going out of his way to troll everyone.
The first Discord server.
Yeah, exactly. And even at the end when Geneva was presenting her ideas, you had Lionette, saying, "Oh, this is my prediction. It was a priest. We're missing a priest," in the middle of Geneva trying to get through her whole spiel about what class. And it's exactly like Twitch chat. You have people predicting, trying to theory craft as they're typing. It was a great part of the chapter. And the early parts of the chapter were amazing too. It really tied in well with this whole melancholy feeling, and then going into the hope and the return of Aaron.
Totally agree. The chat meeting message scroll. Oh boy, I can't wait to get to that point where we start discussing that.
Yeah.
The Wisdom Mage pretending to be an automated message.
Mm-hmm. You said Bismir says, was that Mercia's snark, her Doombringer kicking in? And then Kel says, Relk's back, he's back, he's back, he's back. Also, Byri's family reunion, Yalawi's getting geeted, goblins discovering emoticons. The accuracy of the chat insanity was so good. Mercia outdoing everyone else with her fancy words. Alabaster says, seconding Lynette's comments on the blue juice and pasta, especially Rags eating pasta too. The focus on the little ways they remembered Aaron hit hard. Then we have Shining Spanner saying Mercia is a troll. Definitely is. And Xander says a free-flying out of the window lesson for Yolali's for 5 minutes of time. Good job. He can swim in armor.
Yeah, Eldavin has definitely seemed to show a preference for defenstration. This for dealing with people.
Out the window with everyone. Rhythm and Bruise, Descanter, you wanted to speak?
Yep, I had the favorite things of most of the same ones, Mersha trolling and Relk's back. The two things that I also really appreciated, one, the thing, oddly enough, I think the thing that made me cry the most might have been Salamendi and C showing up as Tridal's legacy, because those were such a good people. And I also really loved the Ryoka's manipulation of the chat rooms, particularly with the Vizier. Just the handling of him and redirecting him and going, all right, no, come yell at me over here so grown-ups can get things done was fantastic.
Fractal and C are just a beautiful pairing, I feel. Like, I get emotional every time I remember that particular chapter and how it ended and how Trital sacrificed himself for C.
Yeah, that was why all of the hard-hitting things, that one hit me in the feels a great deal.
Wondering who it was going to be, and I thought it was maybe C or it was going to be Hawk, actually, but I'm kind of glad it was Tridal's legacy. And the Vizier is great. I think he's a little bit more comic relief than anything, but he's a fantastic playoff against Ryoka and Eren. All right, that wraps it up for sort of general impressions, things that we loved. Now, was there anything that in the chapter you thought maybe could have been done a little bit better? Was there anything that kind of threw you? We're looking for just like helpful critiques here. Not bashing or anything like that, but was just anything that was like, oh, they gave you pause for a second where it's like, oh, maybe this could have been. Anyway, you guys get the point.
I thought Geneva is going to do like some sort of surgery in her thing, like to get the bolts out. I thought that was going to happen. I didn't know she was just going to be like general. That was a surprise, which I think is a nice way for Lakin to come in. Didn't he have a similar skill, right?
Yeah, someone like, got buried in an avalanche. No, it wasn't the avalanche. That was something else. Shit, never mind. Well, he made someone not die.
The Undying Loyalty skill.
Yeah, Lakin's got a special skill for something tied to revival. We'll get a little bit more into that discussion section. Geneva, I did think her reveal was going to be a bit bigger. I don't know how I feel about her popping in at the end of chat. I thought there was going to be maybe more. I expected to see more back and forth between her and the cephalid brains, because we kind of left off on that conversation where they were considering things, and then we had a whole discussion, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, I'm here. Is anybody still here?" So I don't know. That part was a little bit off for me, but I'm not sure how to quite express it.
Yeah, I thought she would lead the discussion, honestly.
Quick point out, Shining Spanner and Soul Scriber both say that Undying Loyalty is the skill you were referring to for in 4.23E, which revived Gamel, and it was also used in, I think, Interlude 5, it's called, the very last interlude of Volume 5. It was used on Numtongue as well.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. He
It
just
was
used
something
Emperor's
used.
Speech. He didn't use the skill.
It's debatable whether or not it's that, but regardless, he's using, he's doing the what is described by Geneva and inspiring people to live through death. Whether it's through the skill or through his aura is not as important as just it's happened there. But we also have Oshi saying, a Knoll shielded his brows. Knolls have eyebrows now for whenever it fits. Apparently they do have eyebrows now. Imagine Knolls with extra bushy eyebrows.
You can have eyebrows without the eyebrow itself. Like you can have, if you ever look at dogs, they sort of seem to have like brows and things, but not the hair. Like they're covered in hair. Anyway, they're covered in hair, but they still kind of have the eyebrow expression in that part of the face, but it's already covered in fur.
That's one of the things that separates dogs from wolves. They evolved so they can mimic our facial expressions. So dogs are unique when it comes to canines. No, I don't think any other canines in nature has like facial expression as dogs do.
Well, maybe Knolls evolved that too. Good point. Let's see. GridCube says that they didn't really understand the goblins using current emoticons. Japanese character faces, less than 3 smileys, don't know, feels kind of weird. Feels really kind of weirdly earther. and doesn't think that maybe that should have been done by them. Quinn responded, okay, Quinn sort of thought, responding, I think, back to my comment where it says about Geneva, saying that kind of given the schedule, the prose is a bit, oh no, sorry. So Quinn is saying that roughly overall, the prose seemed a bit rough in some places, but that kind of makes sense given the schedule that the author is on. And Xander thought that Geneva would have had to have a necromancer summon the soul and ready it, or maybe even a Lucivan. Kit said that having one scroll had multiple rooms was a bit hard to imagine. I remember that some people had books of message scrolls or something. That kind of made more sense to Kit 13. Okay, and then Oshi thinks that the chat missed an opportunity. He felt that it could have weaved the humor with maybe more important bits a bit better. Potion conversation was kind of like a highlight of this. And then Bismir, you wanted to share an opinion?
Yeah, I think it was, we were talking about Noel's bushy eyebrows being new, and I guess another new thing was Lescore's colorful fall landscape.
All right.
I never knew about that, yeah.
I think that I hope at least that will be included in the rewrite happening in Volume 1, just like more physical descriptions of the landscape, because Volume 1 was very sparse on that kind of thing, so a rewrite and including that kind of colorful landscape details would help it a lot.
Wriggles, you missed what about the exploding trees?
We had those, but that's just one thing, it's not the entire environment around it. It just, boom bark trees, and that's it.
Potion, or there's the river with the fish and the length of the trek to town that was of questionable. Did it take a day? Did it take 2 hours?
Yeah, exactly.
Questionable geography going on there again. But yeah, you're right. I really actually did appreciate the grass landscape description. It put me straight back in mind of some of the places that I've traveled where you do get that just beautiful range of colors, and to have it more in the grasses rather than the trees, I thought was a nice touch. I really enjoyed that. Does anybody else have any critiques or anything that they absolutely loved about this chapter?
Shining Spanner says, I don't understand how Kilb and Relk made a cosmic event to make everyone sad. Don't get me wrong, loved it, just don't get how it happened.
Did it all in a day? I thought that based on the phrasing in the chapter, we're kind of seeing it take place in a day, but it was actually across multiple days. We're just jamming everything into one sequence.
Yeah, it was a bit unclear whether or not it was all in one day or whether it was events that happened over several days for different people. It could have been more clear on that, but at the same time, it's a function of storytelling. I feel that they wanted this chapter to have all these emotions in it. They wanted the people to do this, and maybe it's not realistic, or maybe it's not something that would naturally happen in the span of a day, but at the end of the day, it is a story, so you have to make some allowances for that kind of deal. As Xander says, the format could have been 3 or 4 columns and had the text messages in the various groupings after the reorganization. That way you could see the taunts in some chats and the reactions and posturing in other chats.
GridCube thinks that the reason the sadness event happened is definitely thanks to Erin's chaos effect, as Leon notices. She kicked the bucket when she sent help to the horse. So something, maybe Erin is kicking off somehow. And so let's go to Kel and then Action Kermit. Or actually, Action Kermit first, and then we'll go to Kel.
Yeah, so about that whole everybody getting sad at once thing, for the longest time, I have been nursing this theory that there is a connection between the physical and the spiritual worlds that happens in the Wandering Inn, and events that happen in a spiritual realm like the Land of the Dead will echo on a grander scale, in the material world somehow. Like people who are, close to someone that they respected or loved in the Lands of the Dead. If the person in that the netherworld does something, then it has some kind of impact on those people who they were connected to. So this coming right after, Aaron being distracted for a while and then suddenly hearing about, what was happening with her friends, and then she cried a bit and, stopped floating around and, started breathing again and that kind of thing. I think this is, the echo that I was waiting for of that event that happened in the palace. So, this, continues to fit into my crack theory here that has never been officially confirmed. But, it's something like the whole as above, so below rule that Hermetic mysticism is frequently invoked. So I'm watching this with keen interest, and I don't think it's a coincidence.
What I had mentioned was the immortals posturing in the chat, particularly the age comments between like Teriarch saying, some of us are older than others, and he doesn't even know how true that is. But also, everybody crapping on Phallus was really highly entertaining.
Wait, does Teriarch actually know how old he is? He's still sort of, because that's the thing. Like when he was in Rishi and everyone, I was wondering how many people actually know that Alvin is Teriarch, and I'm pretty sure Alvin is not one of those who knows that Alvin is Teriarch.
No, he doesn't know, but there's some, I think, leakage probably between what Teriarch knows and what Eldivin knows. Like it's not a black and white cutoff for them.
Yeah, and Eldivin, you have to remember, is also still pretty old comparably by some of those in chat. Not necessarily one of the immortals, but I think Ascrosh is only a few hundred years, and Teriarch or Eldivin is supposed to be older than that. So he's got some age on him, but he's definitely probably doesn't remember that he's Terry. Age is old. Let's see. Bismir says, sort of following on GridCube. All right, so actually we'll follow up that question in a second because it looks like that's going to be the first discussion topic. We'll just wrap up with Solascriber sharing that they just absolutely love seeing Relk and Kild reunite, seeing how they developed, both have new responsibilities, they're kind of fathers in their own way, how their relationship has changed as they sat down and ate. Everyone eating spaghetti, Relk, Kill, Brags, was so touching and just a wonderful callback to the beginning. All right, so that's going to wrap up general impressions with the chapter, both critiques and things we loved. We're going to move more into sort of targeted discussion now. First up is actually this topic about this original chaos effect. Does it come from Aaron? Does it come from Mishra's Doombringer ability? Or was it just sort of creative narrative license from the author? Xandar thought, well, maybe the closer to Aaron, the more the sad fire effect would kind of hit their spirit, if it were kind of going on the fact that maybe it's originating from Aaron. GridCube was saying, well, maybe everyone who has danger sense is the one that's affected. And this is just kind of a mild variant of, hey, here's something to notice by the system. And so maybe it's the system that's like pushing out this feel sad kind of moment, but it doesn't explain then why Ryoka was affected. So, any thoughts? What kind of perpetuated this sadness across all these characters that we saw in this chapter? You got some theories and reactions and comments. Nerdy Fisher, you're up.
Well, I mean, we constantly get references with Bellavere, the Stitch Witch, that, there are these threads connecting everybody, and I would, the stronger the connection, the thicker the threads, and I would assuming all these characters have very strong connections to Aaron, obviously, so the threads would be the thickest. And somehow... That's, we heard like the theories where like that cosmic everyone's connected. That's like the only concrete evidence I could, think of that we've been told in the story. Is that somehow everyone's just feeling that.
Shiloh Moon is agreeing with you that we do know that fate is a real thing, as Bela and Fisher say. Alabaster says that their crackpot theory on my end is that the solstice effect is the beginning of her personal aura. It only really kicked in at about book 4 to 5, and it's reasonable her aura could have come out by then. So basically her aura is what is connecting all these different people together and, making threads, basically. Valderin says, as I said in general, I think the saddening is a gestating Aaron skill for transmitting a specific emotional context to all of her guests.
I think that the big saddening. It's interesting that you guys pointed out that maybe it's like based on the threads or it's sort of transmitting via. I thought it was just creative narrative license, honestly, but you guys make a good point, and I wonder if that'll play in. So maybe it's like through the flame skill. Maybe everybody touched by Aaron's flames, and that's how they're connected.
I think it's fate because that's what Bellavir was also noticing. There was a thread that is, holding this. I think it's actually literally fate. There's some fated, thing, and Ryoka and her interactions with the Fae kind of suggest that fate is a real thing. So it's simple as that. It's just fate that they all thought of her at the same time with the same emotion.
We know there's prophecy, we know there's fate and destiny. We haven't really seen it too much in play yet, but it very well could be hints that that's going to become a bigger thing later on.
Xander says, on the dead plane, Erin is being schooled by witches, and her nature is to care for her guests, and that likely has an impact on her guests wanting to help her get back and realizing that when they are not in immediate danger, they have time to think on the sadness and failure of their efforts to bring her back. Shining Spanner says, if Kissenberg gets sad again, I will riot. I think a lot of us will riot. Mr. Europe says, Erin is developing the skill big mood. Very powerful skill, apparently.
Well, if she develops a skill that can reach across the continents naturally without her even thinking about it, that would be a pretty impressive skill, honestly.
Yeah. I'll just give my thoughts too on this. I tend to agree with you, Asteria, that it's more of a narrative license type of deal rather than a truly, in-world effect, so to say. Pat says, I think it was both a combination of cause and effect and narrative license. Mersha and Lionette were both contemplating Erin because they heard of Relk and Kilb coming back, and others are in safer positions where they can take time to reflect. Xander says, not thinking is Erin's special skill? Question mark. Exactly. Lynette, you wanted to go? Oh wait, well, yeah, you can go.
maybe
go
not
ahead.
yet.
Yeah, we'll wait for yours in a second. Shining Spanner says, to be fair, we have seen her using her mood to affect the inn. Her body was in the inn. They were there and sad. It affected everyone close.
I think what was also really nice about this sort of spreading of the mood is that we got to see so many different characters' reactions to kind of, right, we had their initial reactions when Erin first semi-died, and now was this the 6 months out since it happened? I know this is the year when she first arrived at InWorld, but anyway, time has passed, and just to sort of see where everybody is at again with, how things have been handled over the last few months since her passing, it's just, I don't know, it was a nice kind of check-in and development.
Oshi says that if Pat is talking about the whole everyone thinking of Erin at the same time thing, it is 100% narrativium. Pirates spend a lot of time setting up for it, but it's still narrativium. I don't know what narrativium is, but I get what you mean, Oshi.
Like learning new words.
Is that a word? I'm not sure.
I have no
I'm
idea.
gonna look it up.
Narrative license is what Shining Spanner was saying that he meant. Let's see. So I think, Lynette, you wanted to get at maybe some of the characters' individual reactions, specifically Toren. Did you want to get into that?
I had some insight a little bit into Toren that hit me, I think, on the second day of stream, where you have Az is dealing with his part of his castle blowing up, and he's distracted. He's got all of these other things, and Toren steps in his path and hands him a partially deconstructed head, but also, he throws the head over his shoulder and hands him the scroll instead and says, look, priorities. Now, this part hit me kind of hard because you got to remember the last time Toren saw Erin was right before he pulled his own skull to pieces in front of her, and she couldn't tell him to stop because her throat was damaged. But he was under the impression, and I think still is because he hasn't witnessed anything to tell him otherwise, that she doesn't like him. He's watching the scroll, the message scroll, and all of these people coming together to do something about Erin, about someone who doesn't like him at all. And yeah, I get why his skull was now moldy, and I get why he was depressed, and how Pirate, stated that he was depressed. But I want to point out that took a lot of strength of character for Toren to bring the scroll to Oskarash and go, hey, you know what? I don't know how I feel about this, but I do want you to help her.
I didn't, now that like you mentioned all of that, it's like, oh, you're totally right. I didn't get that insight. So like, really thanks for sharing, honestly. I didn't even make the connection that he was handing Ascross the scroll that everybody was chatting on. I don't really know why I thought. So wait, did you say that Toren handed him the scroll that everybody was chatting on, or just a reminder to sort of start participating and helping with the cure?
He handed as the scroll that had the bounty listed and had underlined and circled it. So he's encouraging as to stop doing this whole zombie errand thing. That's not important. Actually work on the cure, and here, do that. And because he had the scroll on him, I think he was actually looped in with the rest of the chat.
Makes sense. I am really glad to have seen Toren. His character development has been kind of shelved for a bit, but I mean, he's basically Aaron's and Pisces' kid. And just to kind of see him keep developing, keep going, I like those little touch-ins. And this, even though you're right, even though he's there for maybe a few lines, it was just kind of masterfully done with more insight into how his character is developing, especially the boss on the skull.
He is, he's never going to know, and she doesn't have any idea that he's alive, but she'd be so proud of him.
She would be.
I have a comment on Toren, which is that, yeah, like to your point, Toren has always been like a straight psychopath or sociopath and monster, but in the way that a toddler is. He's just been blessed with, the ability to actually, act on his world. And so, as a result, he followed the impulses of the leveling system and so forth. But he's getting to the emotional intelligence point where he's starting to recognize that, loving and hating somebody simultaneously doesn't functionally work. And he has the context to start understanding why people do what they do. So I think it's good that he got shelved for as long as he did, because nobody wants to really read that. But he's getting to the point of complexity as a character where he can actually interact with others in a human manner. And this was like a great example of it, because I think you're right. I think he probably sees Pisces and Aaron as his mother and father, who doesn't love them or him, and he might even see the healing slime as his sibling if he actually knows the context of its creation, but I'm not sure about that.
Oh, that would be super cute if they realized that they were siblings. Xander said that Toren appeared to be looking at the scroll. The GNSF requested info. Would have been handy if we saw him read this. Shining Spanner says Toren's great, definitely evolving in a positive way. Also, finger guns. Xander said that he's a carer now. Toren, the dad of slimes. And Nerdy Fisher, you wanted to chat.
I almost wonder if we're being prepared for a future kind of reunion between Aaron and Toren, where Aaron before had never talked to any intelligent undead and saw the undead as only as monsters or tools, and now she's interacting with Celt's past monarchs and the current king, these intelligent undead, and seeing them as people. I almost wonder if next time they see Toren, things will be different in the sense of how she feels about him, considering that it's just her perspective on the matter.
If and when they do reunite, hopefully Aaron's interactions with the Deadlands, if she remembers them, and with Celt and Fedo will help her understand Toren a bit more, and hopefully their second reunion will be a bit less murdery.
There was that throwaway line with Alusina too, where she kind of pointed out that Toren was her slave.
Yeah, Aaron did not treat Toren. Toren obviously has issues, but Aaron also didn't really treat him very well. Talks of bells. Poor Toren, poor bells, forever tormented by the bells. All right, so you guys, okay, so let's kind of start talking maybe about the big kind of meeting room. Everybody was sort of super happy to see those. They were a little bit confusing, but we had a lot of fun with the message chat couple questions here. First of which, does anybody think there will be what are the consequences going to be of the various meetings in the chat? For example, Iru wanting to drink with Eldavin and Risaveri making plans. You've got Risaveri and Vesofician as well. You've got Azkarash with any of those people. We also have a lot of people asking for those ghost mushrooms. So what knock-on effect do you think is going to occur?
Bismir, you wanted to go?
Yeah, so kind of following up on knock-off effect. Sorry, like, like the chain reaction kind of this. I think one of the things is internet, actually. I think this is the beginning of internet via like messages. And yeah, sorry, that's about it.
Yeah, I definitely can see this being a start to something resembling the internet. We know in the past that InWorld has had very connected periods of time, and Eldavin is probably basing the spell he's doing right now based off those kind of things. And this will definitely help interconnect people even more than what we've seen in like television and stuff. Kel says, I am terrified about Veil Teresa meeting Belavir because if anyone will take one of her deals, it's Val. And yeah, she's actually mentioned last time when Mersha and Belavir had their fight in the end, she was fully on board and getting into contact with Bela to like learn from her. So I definitely think if the opportunity arose, she would take a deal with Bela.
With that, Bela is very focused on pursuing magic. While it might be tempting for her to make a deal with Bela, she's not going to let deals and things get in her way of her grander pursuit. She might try and get everything she can out of Bela, but I don't think she goes as far as making a deal. She doesn't want anything preventing her.
Yeah, as long as the deal doesn't affect her magic, as long as it doesn't interfere with her magical pursuits, I think she would take it. Shining Spanner says Mersha is the next Queen of Kelt, calling it. Fedaheb did really like Mersha, and Eldavin and Fedaheb both mentioned how much they kind of enjoyed Mersha's spirit. So Mersha came out looking very good this chapter for a lot of different people.
I really enjoyed her actually in this chapter for the first time in a long time. Her weaving around chat was great, and seeing her interact with all the different characters just really nailed it for me. I really enjoyed that, and I fear the day she meets the Angelum and the Lucifin, who seem to have developed a soft spot for her, even in the brief times they were interacting in chat.
All right. Valderin says they were quiet, but two very high-level merchants were in that chat room, and I could very well see them seeking to take advantage of this new forum for greater profits.
We skipped over the internet bit. So this is the first of sense of Eldavin's attempting to apply what he's learned from the Earthers, from people from Earth, to like the in-world itself. He's using the concept of rediscovering stuff as a smokescreen for it, but he's applying a lot of the lessons that we learned as communicators. This is how the internet started. It was just supposed to be a military application that allowed us to like communicate with each other. But when you turn it into something as complex as this, you're talking about an entire group of people who now have the ability to communicate over the world. Like, it is a huge deal. It is not a small thing to be able to do this. And you have to think about just how many little bits and pieces he had to have connected and gotten out of the kids from Wistrom in order to apply this knowledge properly. He wouldn't have just come up with this any other day. He would have applied all of the knowledge that he has to this as well. That's a lot of work. And there's no Like, I can't see any possible way how all of these like genius level people who he has involved in this wouldn't be able to figure out this is a fucking big deal. I can use this. I can use this to communicate my ideas, to spread information. It took, by my measure, I know Pirate doesn't like time, but like as far as time is concerned, it took them a day, half a day maybe, of communication to solve a problem that everybody alone couldn't. Could you imagine just how deeply useful that would be for like hundreds and hundreds of different not just research applications, but for everything else? That's how we ended up with the internet. And the inevitable consequence of that is Bela, people sneaking into different chat rooms being completely evil. But that is what it is, right? Okay, that's all I had to say. Sorry.
But here's the thing, like here's a bit of pushback. The thing with the internet today is that anyone can use it. And to be anonymous, you really have to be high level or have the right connections. Like not anyone in worlds can access this network right now. I would say it's like more like the early days of the internet when it was still like very elite, only a few universities, a few. In our world, it took decades for it to be the internet as we know it today. It was mostly just experts.
But to redirect. That's the point. They have they have the end result of our development in their hands. They have phones. They have children who understand. Like I hate to say this, but we know like people who are millennials and Gen Z. They know more about the internet than most people. Like the function of it. Producing the function is something that they're capable of doing. What they don't know is what the consequences are and how to develop it properly. And you know what? You have that resource and those answers available to you. That development period just shrank from like decades to years.
Definitely agree. But I think here's the thing. It's centralized way more because they know the effects of it. If someone like not a very good earther would try to control, to be the next Zuckerberg, to be the next thing, to be the next what is the dude with the fates, the gambler of fates. So it's I don't know. There's a possibility for to be a great thing for also for someone to be the next Zuckerberg of InWorld.
There's two responses to that. There's one, classes will develop based around the internet once it's developed, right? Once you have tools, you'll get different classes. There's gonna be an internet troll at some point, a class that equates to internet troll sometime.
An actual troll. An actual troll.
And the second thing is, have you like FedoHep was just completely insulted by the fact that he wasn't able to be in charge. The exposure to those high level people means that each of them will want to develop their own secure networks. The Lucifin alone, they will take this and they will turn it like, could you imagine them making deals over the internet? Like, oh hey, I have something to offer you. Like it's perfectly suited to all of these immortals who don't want to interact directly with the world, but they want information and entertainment. And you just presented it to all of these immortals, including Azkaresh. Even Azkaresh is going to be like, hey, this is like, if I convince like hundreds of thousands of people to be on this, I can manipulate everyone, and I don't have to like invade bodies. I can just get them to do stuff.
Oh yeah, and I think Belavir.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I think I'm taking up too much time.
Yeah, pushing back a little bit on how the message of message scrolls kind of got developed. Maybe I misread this, but correct me if I'm wrong. I thought Eldavin said, hey, this has existed before. Yeah, you guys kind of rediscovered it, but this has been a thing in the past.
The scroll system is what he was talking about, but not its application as an internet level. That's what I'm talking about. Using it in this.
I thought he had said that it had been used in this context before. It just had been forgotten.
The spell had been. The linked message spells had been, but using it in the context of creating chat rooms and functional internet, no.
Bismir said, following up on what you were saying, Oshi, just sort of think about how quickly the internet caught on in InWorld, so this is probably going to take off as well over the next couple of months as more people get access. Xandar said that the multi-message system is probably going to be, it will be expensive and likely will need to be verified, having encrypted systems in the future, however, not too useful for merchants, as things will kind of lose their unique value quite quickly. Shining Spanner says that they're looking forward to the Agellum spamming cat videos. I would imagine that they would spam the Wiggles. What's the name of the sheep?
Sariant lambs.
Yeah, I would. Instead of cat videos, I think we're gonna get sheep videos, guys.
Honestly, if we're being realistic, the first thing is not going to be as wholesome as cat videos. We already seen like authors doing all these, graphic books. So I don't think it's going to be cat videos for
Vasir is
surely.
Vasir is echoing
Sure.
my need for romance. It's only going to explode when someone decides to make a message scroll for finding dates. GridCube says that Eldavin was talking about the group chat being a thing before. We also have Sages in Deadlands sharing information about the networks being a kind of long ago thing. So it looks like this has just been around, but because we're maybe in the age of waning, right, all of this magic has been lost. It was interesting to see that term also pop up again. Let's see. Lord Pelmima would like to know your location. Hot single couriers in your area from Blue Juice. Lynette says that she would love to see sheep. Oh, don't read that. Well, it's been read. Wiggles, do you want to take over the rest?
DM Craft says, with how quickly Bellavere got into this chat, do you think that she is a reason why the spell ends up disappearing and only encrypted versions remain, like the walled cities? I think that's giving a lot of weight to Bellavere's presence when I think she's more, behind the scenes type of deal, even if she might have interacted with these kind of spells in the past. I don't think her presence alone would necessitate getting rid of the spell overall. Mr. Europe says, surely the Agelum would post inspirational posters. Courier says, does Ryoka know that Lacan had Lacan? I don't know.
Lacan?
Does Lacan has an entire population of Sariant lambs? The Mahab knows her face now, Mersha Sweat.
Oh no.
Xander says, Sand Quinn has hired 2 alchemists, not too bad for an author/critic. She kinda not letting her class known. Bismir replying to DM Craft's point, Bela, would it be much easier to banish her now, since you can synchronize powerful people across the world into saying go away?
I think also for Bella to fight this, it would be way easier. She just has to be anonymous. I think she just was too proud and too mad at Marsha to be anonymous. But if she really wants to use this, she can benefit a lot. She just has to be anonymous, at least at first, because some people were interested, but because they saw the reaction of everyone else, it's like, oh no, I don't want to. But if she was anonymous, like, hey, I can help out and talked one-on-one, she would definitely get like a chance.
She's probably perfectly set up to spearhead her own literal dark net, right? Like, this is webs and strings and everything. Like, this is how she can start making deals worldwide, even more so than she was before.
I definitely stand by my earliest hypothesis is that fate exists, and she has definitely not controlled fate, but she has definitely connected to the web of fate and fates of people and how they lead. Because even though she didn't know Aaron, or she still knew this is an important place, a lot of things are happening, a lot of fates are gathering here. So I think I don't think she can control fate, but I do think she's in. And we have now another class that has to do with fates. The guy is it Gambler of Fates or Trickster of
She's
Fates?
dead. Gambler of Fates is dead. I don't know.
Rickle is the
right.
one you're talking about, and he's a Trickster of Fortunes.
Trickster of Fortunes.
Hey guys, so we wrapped up the official recording a little bit earlier than usual, but discussion continued on for several hours. Some of the highlights included the Sariant lambs and whether or not they have a conspiracy. Popular names for their little group were called the Mob, the Mafia, the Yakuza, and whether or not unicorns are part of this conspiracy. Blue Juice postulates that, a fluffy, intelligent, magical sheep, and a creature that's drawn to innocent people who like fluffy things. Maybe we'll get some unicorns. There was also a lot of discussion about how the ghost mushrooms will be continued to be used going forward. Everybody kind of leapt straight to the idea of poison. I objected that everyone went straight to murderous uses. There was some great talk about who can actually see the priest class. That sparked a debate on holy items and holy sites. Oshi advocated for Aaron to have a holy item, the holy frying pan. This prompted a lot of very serious discussion about ant worshippers. Popular names for them included the frying pantheists, or as I like to say, the pantists. Next topics included the many ways that Aaron's resurrection could go wrong. Popular choice was the dungeon, but there was a whole list. A lot of speculation on what happened to the chorus. Lynette thinks that she's off making babies with Toadie. Who knows? Haven't seen her for a while. There were lots of love for Salami and C. So we were very happy to see them again. And then closing out topics were kind of where's Nir's headed and what's going to happen to Relk and Kill. Are they going to stay in the store? Are they going to do other things? We'll find out. There's also a lot of discussion about who was going to be the character that acts as the general that Geneva said that we need as the last missing part of Aaron's cure. Quite a few names were thrown around, but top contenders included Lakin, Magnolia, and Oslam. So can't wait to find out, and we'll see. But yeah, anyway, discussion went on for quite a bit. So if you wanted to get your opinion in or you wanted to be part of the discussion, make sure you join us next time.